Rachel Liu Martindale's journey into baking didn't begin in the pastry kitchen. It began in engineering. In this episode of The Perfect Rise, Rachel shares what it really looks like to leave a stable career, build a bakery step by step, and learn how to balance creativity and the hard realities of running a sustainable business. From scaling recipes and managing margins to testing demand through pop-ups, navigating a pandemic pivot, and rebranding with intention, Rachel brings a grounded and honest perspective to what long-term success in the industry actually requires. This conversation is a must-listen for bakers, students, and bakery owners who need the reminder that talent matters, but systems, boundaries, and business readiness are what help you stay in the game. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today's guest is Rachel Liu Martindale. Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we are going to hop right in and kind of take people along the journey of what has been your life. So you left a stable engineering career to pursue baking. From a business of baking lens, what systems thinking from engineering has most directly shaped how you price, scale, and manage production today?
Yeah, so I hated my engineering job. But I really loved chemistry and math, and so
Mhm.
I liked that part of engineering, and I actually do think that those 2 elements really translate into baking,
Yeah.
absolutely, because baking is chemistry,
Yeah.
obviously, but math, I think the math is really what, a lot of people don't realize how much is involved in day-to-day baking with scaling, even just, scaling recipes,
Yep.
scaling up recipes, just have all the mental math and really the phone calculators that we use
Yes.
on a day-to-day basis, um, has really shaped how we just, figure out our pars for the day or for the day and the week, and then figuring out how much we need to scale, a home recipe. It's like when I used to test recipes and stuff, it was always just like a single batch for
Uh-huh.
home, and we fit in my tiny KitchenAid mixer at home, and I would make a batch of a dozen, which is what most people do. And
Yeah.
and
Yep.
now that we need to make hundreds of things, it's just a lot of it is I think we do use a ton of math and that part of I guess my engineering degree to be able to
Yeah.
to be able to figure out how to price and scale recipes and figure out just what our cost of goods are, and how do we figure out our margins for our pricing and things like that. So it is a lot of math that I guess I wasn't really anticipating going into a retail bakery, that I would have to do that pretty much every single day.
Yes. And I think it's something that people aren't really thinking about. They're just like, "Oh, I'm a creative, and I don't need
Yes.
that." And I'm like, "Oh, the amount of math that goes into this," I think that shocked me in culinary school.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, we're doing equations. Like, we're
Oh yeah.
we're in here
Yeah.
doing all kinds of multiplication. What is this?" And then you're like, "Oh, no, I, literally use math and science every single day because why
Absolutely.
didn't this work?" So I think that and a lot of students listen to the podcast, and being inside of schools, talking to students, they're just like, "Oh, I mean, but I just love to be creative." Yes, and you need to know how to multiply
Yes,
when you get
absolutely.
into the industry. Like, it's just gonna be so important for you that it's not just about you can bake something. Can you bake it at
Mhm.
scale? And do you know how to do that? So I definitely
Yeah.
think that that is one of the systems that I wish more people talked about. That we're
Yeah,
just not out here
absolutely.
being creative. We actually have to sit down and do the math.
Totally, and I can, think about so many different times that we have accidentally just, missed a decimal point, or, so
Mhm.
just some tiny, tiny little thing, and then something doesn't turn out, and you're like, "What happened?" And then you go back
Yep.
to the little,
Yes.
handwritten
Yes.
multiplication that we did, and we're like, "Oh, no, we multiplied it by, an extra 0, or, not," just tiny,
Yes.
tiny little mental math errors like that can totally mess up everything. So,
100%.
yeah.
100%. Yeah, I've been there. I've been there, I don't miss it. I've been there and I've done it. So, as a self-taught baker who later trained professionally, what gaps do you see between technical skill and business readiness, and where do bakery owners most underestimate what it takes to sustain a business long term?
Oh my goodness. I could talk about this forever and ever.
Good.
Uh, well, So I actually this is kind of funny because when I was starting out mostly doing baking as a hobby and
Mhm,
maybe doing like a little bit of orders here and there for my friends and mutual friends, I had started talking about like wanting to open something, right? Like potentially opening a bakery down the road. And my financial planner actually was like, you need to read this book called The E Myth and just like definitely read it. The example is also of a baker too. He's just like,
mhm.
I just wanted to throw this nugget of information for you just to make sure you know what you're mentally prepared for kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I did read it, and, um, funnily enough, I read it and I understood what it meant, and I understood the, like just, like, the concept of, like, you love doing this thing, and
Mhm.
then when you open a business, you're basically not gonna be doing that thing, or, like, if you
Mhm.
if you do all of it, you're gonna go straight to burnout, basically, because 'cause you're working nonstop.
Yeah.
And so I read it and I understood going into it. But I think there's like something about mentally grasping it that doesn't really translate into the day to day until you're in it that you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, wait, this is actually
Yes.
what happens." Um so yeah, in terms of like the gap between technical skill or passion even and like you were saying creativity that you want to like just pursue the creative part of it,
Yeah.
obviously running a business is not that. It's very much like numbers, taxes,
Mhm.
accounting, licenses, like just all of the like business and financial acumen that you really need to make sure you have a sustainable business that I think a lot of people don't realize that like you really are going to be plunged into that world whether you like it or not
Yep.
and you'll need to learn. And for me, like I had no business experience whatsoever. I did not take any business classes, no financial classes. And so I think I probably preemptively was like, oh, I'll be fine. Like it'll be okay. I will be fine. I'll just figure it out on the go. And that's what I have been doing the last several years, but it's not easy, right? It's like a lot of
Yeah.
learning, a lot of me not knowing what I'm doing
Mhm.
and needing to figure it out. And even with a CPA who does our like yearly kind of like financial taxes and stuff, I still do like all of our quarterly, like estimated taxes, all of, and now like we have to do like monthly sales taxes and just all of the things
Yeah.
that like, oh my goodness, that I would never have expected when I was baking these little cakes at home in the very beginning. They're like, oh, my day is going to be consumed with administrative work.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Yep.
not even just that, like I think the like mental stress of always thinking about like where are our margins? Are we actually okay? Are we breaking even? Are we profiting right now? Oh no, are we actually in the red because everything costs so much money? Um, so yeah, I do think that that is like what a lot of people don't see. And you can
Mhm.
hear about it even like I said, you can read books about it. You can read a lot of people saying like, "Hey, this is like the stuff about what it takes to run a business that you need to
Yeah.
know." But like when you're kind of in this world of, "Oh, I love baking so much. I just want to do this every single day of my life. I want to open a bakery." I think like people don't really think about and I have like this tunnel vision, right? Like you're just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no. Everything will be okay because I love this. I'm going to do this." And then there's all this peripheral stuff that I will figure out later.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that that is like the realistic take from my end of like I had that tunnel vision and now I'm in it and I'm like, "Oh man, there's so much that I did not know and I'm still learning and still
Yeah.
like figuring out." And like as long as people know that, like that is what they're going to get and like if you're okay with that and continuing to do that even though it all sucks, like I personally don't like any of it. So like if I like it enough that like I'm willing to kind of balance the two, like
Mhm.
that's why I'm still going. But then there are definitely still days that I'm just like, I just this is not what I signed up for. I don't want to do like tax stuff every single day, right? So
Yes.
yeah. Anyway, that was a lot of rambling to just basically say that there is a lot of business readiness that needs to exist or at least be mentally prepared for when
Yeah.
you're yeah, when you're like in school or like wanting to open a bakery or whatever, there's just a lot there that like needs to be considered.
Agreed. And I didn't really learn about it until I was closing my bakery. Like, I
Mm.
took an entrepreneurship course during COVID, and I ended up closing the bakery maybe 2 months later.
Mhm.
But in the very first day of class, the lady said, "If you run a business and you're the only person in it, or you're the only person in it who can do what you can do, You don't have a business, you have a glorified hobby." That was the
Yeah.
first day of class, and I was like, "Oh, what?" And she's like, "If there's not another you in your business, like, if you get hurt and you can't show up for work, can somebody else still run payroll? Can somebody else still train the new employees?" And it,
Mhm.
like, really made everybody in the class kinda sit there and think about that for a second, and then she was like,
Right.
"Welcome to entrepreneurship. So here are all the things you need to know." And for, like, 90 days, it was all of the things that you really are kinda, like, learning on the job,
Mhm.
but learning how to do it for real. And I was like, "Man, if I had had this 10 years ago when I started, probably would've made so much more money." And so, like, that thought process stuck with me that, like, even though I was very fine closing my bakery during COVID, I was like, "Okay, are other bakery owners just kinda out here riding dirty? Like, you have no idea what you don't know." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Now that I know it, how do we get more people to know that these are things y'all need to know is gonna happen when you get here? That, yep,
absolutely.
you are a great baker, but are you paying these quarterly taxes? Do
Mhm.
you have a CPA? Do you have a bookkeeper if you don't wanna do it yourself? And don't try and
Mhm.
outsource every single thing without understanding what they do."
Right.
And I think that became super important. "I'll just pay somebody to do it." Okay, but are they doing it right?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what they're supposed to be doing so that you can make sure it's
Right.
being done correctly type of thing? Which has become a really big thing for us at the RBA as we're building out the business of baking, which is a course that, like, we taught at IBIE, but now we're gonna kinda, like, micro do this on a larger
Mhm.
scale to help more bakery owners understand, like, those things you don't know. Like,
Right.
you wanna scale your business, but do you have this down before you scale your business? Because if you scale it, you gon' break it.
Yep.
So, that's something we've been working on behind the scenes to help more of our bakery owners, that should be releasing this summer. Fingers crossed.
Nice.
So, that
Amazing.
it will be super exciting once we get to that point, but let's talk about Milk and Honey. So, it began as a side business and grew through pop-ups before committing to a brick and mortar. Looking back, how did that phased growth model protect the business, and what does it teach about testing demand before expansion?
Yeah, so I am the most risk averse person by nature, but also I think because my parents also like just like drove that concept
Mhm,
into my head of like you cannot take big risks. You need to have a very safe job. I think just being Asian American, that's just like very much like my Asian upbringing.
mhm,
And so they were devastated when I quit my engineering job. And yeah, so I still had this very like risk averse mindset going into starting this. And so I actually, yeah, started it as a very small little tiny cottage food bakery in my apartment while I
mhm,
was still working another job. And I did that for a very long time, probably like at least a year or two, and then decided to do more consistent pop-ups, and I had a permanent pop-up
mhm,
in downtown. And then it wasn't until that actually I did that for about 6 months. So until, like, I tested the market in that, like, way that I people would actually come and I was actually selling stuff, that
mhm,
I was like, "Okay, now I feel comfortable taking the next step and the next step." So I basically just did that in very long increments each step of the way until opening, like, I guess the grand finale, which is, like, the
mhm,
actual brick and mortar. Um, but what happened, like, in the middle of that was that I actually, quit my job, my full-time job, to decide to dedicate, like, full-time to, like, this business, and that was January of 2020. So, horrible timing. Obviously, nobody knew what was gonna come, right? So,
right,
I did that at January 2020. I quit my job. I decided to move into a commercial, or rather, I moved into a rental space that I outfitted into a commercial kitchen, just,
mhm,
the commercial kitchen, no, like, real retail space.
mhm,
And yeah, I was like, "All right, let's do this. I'm quitting my job. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna like jump right in finally." And then we opened, quote unquote, like March or April of 2020, and lockdown happened. I kid you not, like a week or two later, and I was like, "Oh, okay, well that's not gonna work."
mhm,
So that definitely like yeah, switched things up, and I had to pivot, and for sure. But I do think that despite that little hiccup in the center with the pandemic, that testing each step of the way, feeling comfortable before taking the next step was really helpful for us, or me, and like now my team to be able to just grow slowly and
mhm,
expand slowly so that we didn't take like, I guess, yeah, just didn't like scale too quickly or like take too big of a risk for my comfortability level and
Mhm.
then realize, "Oh, no, this is not gonna work." So, I made sure I just did very small incremental steps, and I felt more comfortable doing that, and I think the business has also just, like, slowly grown organically because of that too versus, yeah, just, like, suddenly dropping, like, a half a
Yeah.
million dollars and taking out a huge loan and then now being like, I'm being screwed potentially." So,
Yeah.
I'm not that type of person, but I know there are a lot of people who are, and, like, that's great, and that I applaud people who can do that, but I very much am not. So,
I
yeah.
think that's fair. One of the thing well, I won't say one, but I've had other business coaches and I've taken a whole lot of business classes since 2020, but, like, that's the recommended way to do things is, like, let the market tell you what your next step is. Like, is the
Mhm.
demand actually there before you go open a brick and mortar, before you sign this long-term contract and you
Sure.
had proof, it's like getting that proof of concept that, like, "No, people actually want this." And
Mhm.
if I open this business, yes, it's a risk, but it's less of a risk because you had proof that people
Yeah.
wanted it.
Yeah.
So, I understand. People kinda jump the gun and go all the way in, but based on everything I've learned, you kinda did it the way all the experts are like, "No, this makes the most sense," before
Yeah.
like, no one could predict COVID,
Mhm.
like, at all. So, like, you know what I mean? If you had, like, done all the things and been fully in, you would have been stuck in that lease, and there
Mhm.
was nothing you could do about that, right?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so I think it has its place, and I think when we think about it as the small incremental steps, and they absolutely add up to something bigger later, if we can break down all of the long-term goals into teeny, teeny, tiny small ones, and, like,
Mhm.
let's do this first. Let's get the proof of concept in here before we just go get this business loan to do all these things. I
Mhm.
think we might have more, um, I don't wanna say more successful, but more longevity
Mhm.
within the industry. So
Yeah.
I love that. So,
Yeah.
no, kudos to you. I don't know if I would have done that, but kudos to you. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper with opening a commercial bakery just before COVID. So
Mhm.
I'm sure that forced some hard leadership decisions. What did that season reveal about resilience, cash flow, discipline, and decision making under pressure that still informs how you lead today?
So, I obviously was not anticipating the pandemic. So, we were planning on just I was planning on having the commercial kitchen. We had a like it wasn't a retail space, but it was like a just like a little dinky counter that somebody could come pick up their cakes and stuff. So, I initially was thinking, "Oh yeah, this could be like my mini like retail light." Just try to figure out if I ever wanted to sell something like maybe on a Saturday and people would
Mhm.
come in and that was kind of the plan initially. But then lockdown happened very quickly after that. So, I yeah, was just like at the time though, thankfully it was just me. So I really was able to just pivot quickly and not have a team to think about and consider. So I
Mhm.
was able to just be like, all right, well, that's not going to work. People aren't going to be able to come here. I also don't want to be here. Like I don't want to be physically like interacting with people if no one knows what's happening right now, right?
Right.
And so um I immediately was like, all right, we're going to just do um, delivery orders, I actually pivoted to, like, doing online ordering and
Mhm.
did deliveries all around the Ann Arbor area, which was absolutely exhausting, but initially, it was, like, a really great opportunity to fill this space of, like, people are scared, people don't know
Yeah.
what's going on, everyone really wants comfort and pastries and, like, just be able to have, like, something familiar, and so I actually was able to get, like, a ton of orders initially with, like, people wanted cookies and cakes and just, like, different pastries to just bring them a little bit of joy, and I
Mhm.
felt like that was amazing to be able to just deliver that to people's homes, and yeah, so it just felt like, what do people want right now? It's like kind of just thinking about what can I do? What is a feasible thing? What do people want at the same time? So it was, yeah, delivery orders, small little just like mini cakes to celebrate
Mhm.
birthdays because households were
Yep.
wanting to celebrate still, but like no one was having parties. So I went and switched step to doing like really tiny 4 and 6 inch cakes for people. And then nobody was getting married because of stuff and like that was what I was exclusively doing at the time was wedding cakes. So I was like,
Oh,
oh
wow.
crap. Well, so I ended up just either people postponed their weddings or cancel them. And I decided to just again go like for the really small cakes, be able to like deliver them to people's houses. and kind of focus on that instead. And then a couple months in, once things were a little bit less, I guess, like scary with the lockdowns and stuff,
Mhm.
and coffee shops and other places were still open to the community, I was like, why don't we just do wholesale then? Because like, why don't
Mm.
I? So that's a way to that's a way to get our pastries out to the community, but I'm not the one that has to like
They have
sell
to do
them,
it.
and like I'm not the
Yeah.
one that has to be the face to face person. So we started contacting a bunch of different local coffee shops and got a handful of wholesale accounts, and that's kind of what um, basically sustained us through the pandemic, which was
Nice.
amazing. So I hired my friend actually part time to be able to help me, and so between the two of us, we were able to just like fulfill a bunch of wholesale orders each week, and that was really nice and felt like safer for us to be able to just not have to deal with customers and like
Mhm.
also weather the pandemic. And so yeah, I do think that that was, nice to be able to, like, be really tiny and pivot really quickly and be able to just kind of make these quick decisions that way, and it also really did help with, I guess, yeah, just sustaining us to be able to have this, like, bread and butter, like, account to be able to
Yeah.
just have this, like, yeah, just, continual stream of revenue and then keep costs as low as possible and not just have, like, just, like, a bunch of wasted product, I guess, potentially. So, that was really nice to be able to pivot really quickly in that, especially because it was all unexpected and not necessarily what I wanted to do initially, but
Mhm.
you gotta do what you gotta do to survive.
Agreed. Do you still do wholesale now, or did you bring back in weddings?
So we do have a very limited amount of wholesale accounts that we still take right now. And it's actually just people that I have like relationship with in the past that own like that are managers of different cafes and stuff. So we just have
Yeah.
those accounts that we do each week. And then wedding cakes, I've scaled back a ton, mainly just because I kind of got burnt out with making them all the time
Mhm.
after 5 years. So I only take them for people that I know or like previous clients that I've made like cakes for that I'll kind of like still take on cakes for them.
Yeah.
And or if it's somebody that has, like, a very specific design that I feel is, like, simple that I can just really quickly do, like, I'm happy to do that. It's more the, like,
Yeah.
more elaborate wedding cakes that I used to do that I'm just like, "Nah, I don't wanna do that anymore."
Yeah.
So I don't take those ones anymore, and I refer them to my friend.
Yes, I understand, totally.
Yes.
Okay, so after 5 years, you chose to rebrand rather than push growth under the same model. From a sustainability standpoint, how do you evaluate when a business needs to evolve structurally and not just work harder?
Yeah, so actually fun we were just talking about the wedding cake. So Milk and Honey was pretty much just wedding cakes and wholesale, and then
Uh-huh.
when I decided to rebrand to Q, that was mainly because we were finally out of the pandemic and I found a retail spot that I actually really liked and was like, "Maybe I should just take the plunge now. Let's see what happens." Like, it feels like this is a safer time to open a retail business.
Mhm.
Um, but throughout the pandemic, what happened was, I started making a lot more, like, Taiwanese and Chinese food just because I missed something about the pandemic really just made me, like, yearn for things that
Yeah.
were nostalgic and comfortable and
Yeah.
what I missed, and so I started making a lot of the food that I ate growing up, not just, savory, like, food for dinner for my family, but, like, incorporating a lot of these flavors that I missed from my childhood, so a lot of Asian flavors like black sesame and matcha, red bean, like things that you just
Mhm.
really couldn't find, at least here where I live, at a bakery. And so at that point, I just was like, the fact that I can't find this anywhere here, maybe that's a sign for me that like I can incorporate the things that I love into my baking and hopefully sell it to other people and people will
Yeah.
like it. And so that's kind of what happened was that I decided like, okay, this there seems to be like a gap in this market, like that there's not many Asian American pastries. You either have very much like European style or like American style bakeries, or you have in our at least in our town, just Asian bakeries, straight up Korean bakeries, very, very traditional style, and you don't have anything kind of like in the
In
middle
between.
where
Mhm.
yeah, so, that's why I actually decided to rebrand and not just because I was also passionate about it because this is the stuff that I wanted to make and I miss eating and felt like it was cool to be able to, like, meld together the things from my childhood and also like the childhood like Asian flavors that I miss, but also like being very much American because I grew up here, that like
Mhm.
kind of smashing them together and making something new and fun and different was what I enjoyed doing. And so yeah, I think at that point I was like, this is something I think is different enough that people hopefully will like, and there's nothing in the area that you can there's nothing in the area that like has this. So I
Yeah.
wanted to test it out, and did that rebrand, did a handful of pop-ups with just the rebrand just to see if people would actually want to, like, again, my risk
Yeah.
averse self, I was like, Will people like this?"
Yes.
And those pop-ups were really, really popular, and, like, I sold out very quickly, and they were just, like, really long lines, so I was like, maybe this will work. I'm gonna sign the lease," and so that's what kinda happened instead of, like, me sticking with the milk and honey cakes and, like,
Yeah.
pastries and wholesale. I decided I was like, "All right, I'm gonna just kind of start over new. This is gonna be a blank slate, a new space. Might as well just have it be a completely new kind of like business name, new concept."
Yeah.
Yeah, so I felt like it was like a refresh of everything.
Nice. So when people are thinking about rebranding, I was the queen
Mhm.
of that back in the day. Um, when you're thinking about the rebrand, do you feel like um, you had do you think that there was a struggle with authenticity in the rebrand, or did it feel like this is super aligned? So when we're like thinking about balancing authenticity with the market education and profitability without you having to compromise anything, did that feel like, okay, I got to sit down and crunch these numbers, or did it feel like everything kind of points to this is going to make sense, so
Mhm.
we're going to do it? Or was it a combination of the two?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of the 2. I definitely found quickly that people were, at least in Ann Arbor, were definitely interested and more willing and to
Mhm.
try new flavors and things that they might not be familiar with, which has helped, and which I think um, having an idea of the general market, because I've lived here for the last, oh my goodness, 15 years now, which is crazy to think of. 15 years now. And there is actually a very large Asian population here because of the university as well. So there was just like some things that kind of going in, I felt like, okay, I feel comfortable taking this risk of kind of introducing
Mhm.
things that people might think are a little bit different. And a lot of it is balancing like what we want to make, what is feels authentic to me as an Asian American, and what people, but then also like what will actually resonate with people, what will people
Yeah.
actually buy?
Yeah.
And that's been honestly like a lot of trial and error. It has been a lot of like, we're trying this, we're gonna see what happens and what we learn from the market. And while also just making sure that we are being smart about the decisions too, and like make, because obviously like I can make everything that I want to make, and if nobody buys it, then we're not gonna we're not gonna be in business. We're
Right.
not gonna be profitable. They're not gonna be sustainable. So it is a lot of trial and error, at least for us, that we found, and almost like it's almost actually been to a fault for us. So my general manager and I were just talking about how we almost have dug ourselves into a hole of making things that are like unique and weird enough that whenever we offer something like a snickerdoodle or a chocolate chip cookie, those things don't sell as well because they're like, "Oh yeah, that's just a chocolate chip cookie. Why do I want to buy that?"
It's not what they're
Compared to
coming
this
here for.
like ube flan cheesecake. I want something that's weird. So, but it's hard because we do feel like, oh man, we can't. We feel like we have to keep
Mhm.
incorporating, like, different flavors now, and otherwise people don't buy them. So that's, like, another, I guess, like, another, like, issue that we're running into.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of authenticity, though, I do feel like there are times that I do wish that I could offer something like a rather specific flavor that we've sold that is just not as popular because people aren't familiar with it or they
Mhm.
just don't really like it. For the longest time, we still keep trying to, like, offer red bean products, so with red bean paste products.
Mhm.
And I think particularly for Asian people, this is like something that's very standard, very much like a part of our day-to-day like culture, like in terms of desserts that we eat all the
Mhm.
time. But like something about sweet bean paste, I think just does not translate to a lot of people. And like so no matter how much we try and incorporate it in things, like people just will not. buy
Mhm.
them, or at least I shouldn't say that. They're just not as popular. They just don't sell as well.
Yeah.
And I know there's like an acceptance in that that I kind of have to deal with of like
Yeah.
as much as I want this on the menu, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's okay. This is the market that I'm in, and like if people don't really want it, aren't as interested into this, I have to like get over my desire to just be like, this is what I want on the menu, to being like, okay, this is just not really what people want, and that's okay. And I can maybe eventually down the road find something that I can incorporate it in that people will eat it.
Yeah.
But if that's not the case, then like, yeah, just have to take a step back and just be like, that's okay. That's okay that this might not be what people want.
I love that mindset shift. I think there's far too many people who are like, "No, you're gonna eat this," and people are just like, "No. No, we're not. No, we're not."
Right.
You know? We're not
But
gonna get
that's
this.
yeah. It is a balance though, because it is like I wanna offer what I wanna offer, but I also can't offer anything if I'm not able to sustain the business. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unless, you make it like there's a very specific reason it's being offered, or it's only offered at
Yes.
this time of the year. Like,
Right.
seasonal flavors were probably my favorite thing when I was running the bakery. They're like, "You can't order this all year long. You can
Yeah.
only order this during Christmas, or you
Yep.
can only order this during, back to school season. It's the only for a week." And then
Mhm.
creating that demand, and people are like, "Oh my god, it's almost time." Like,
Yeah.
I want this now. The same way we wait for, Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever. They're only gonna release it for a certain amount of time,
Yep.
and then it's gone. And,
Yes.
like, if you get people into that, maybe it will work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Test it out. Let me know. See if it. Okay, so we know you've opened your brick and mortar in Ann Arbor.
Mhm.
What leadership lessons have surprised you most when it comes to team capacity, owner burnout, and operational boundaries?
Oof. Uh, oh man. Okay. I feel like there's like another one that I could feel like I could talk about for forever and ever.
Forever.
But I think that we have a very small team right now. So there's only, including me, there's 6 of us. So
Okay.
we're pretty tiny. And I would say that like I'm always surprised at how much we're able to output as, like, such a small team, to be honest,
Mhm.
even with, like, making everything from scratch, and not having any, like, really industrial manufacturing equipment or anything like that. So I'm always really impressed and, like, really proud of what our little team is able to put out each week. But at the same time, I it's also just, like, feels like it's not enough or, like,
Mhm.
never enough, which is interesting. Um I yeah, I'm, like, always impressed by how much we were able to offer and, like, what we can actually make just with our hands, but then at the same time, it feels like, especially like you were saying earlier, during the times we have specials, so, like, seasonal things, like, special things. So this past week was Pie Day. We had our like, a
Mhm.
special pie that we offer every single year that only is offered for Pie Day, and it just feels like we could never make enough, like, for those
Mm.
special things. So, like, that, like, for our most popular time of the year is around Mid-Autumn Festival, which is a Chinese holiday or Asian holiday where we make mooncakes.
Mhm.
And we get people who ask us about mooncakes literally like all year long. And I always have to tell them we only make them at Mid-Autumn Festival.
Uh-huh.
And and we make thousands and thousands of them by hand, and still like never enough. Like people just are always upset. They're like, "Why did I miss the pre-order?" Or like, "Why are you already sold out?" Like, or "Why do you not have another week of them? Why can't you make them another weekend?"
Mhm.
It just feels like interesting that like there's this yeah, like we feel like we're making as much as we possibly can,
Yeah.
especially those times of year. Like all of us are working to the like at capacity, and then it's still not enough. And so I do feel like it's been hard, but also important for me to set that boundary of like, no, we're only making this much. If that makes people upset, like I'm sorry. Like we're very much a specialty bakery. We make everything by hand. We're a very small team. We only have so much that we can make compared to, like an industrial bakery that like
Yeah.
just is always able to churn out stuff. And like there's something really special about the fact that like we have a very limited menu. We have a very seasonal and like rotating menu, and that is
Mhm.
what we are. And like I think people need to like accept that that is what we are, and like that we are not industrial bakery. And so there's just different ways that we operate, right?
Yeah.
You can't always just come in and grab like everything that you want. And like there is like at the end of the day, we're gonna have less selection than the beginning. And like that's okay. And I'm like, I hope that people understand that. And I've like learned that we need to be okay with that, or else I'm gonna burn out, the
Yep.
team's gonna burn out. Like if we just keep like operating at like 110% all the time, right? And
Mhm.
so and like even after those seasonal times, like I was just telling you, where we're all working super hard, we're always just so exhausted afterward. And like, but we still have to keep running, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not just like we do this huge push and then we can take a break. It's like, no, we're still open every single, like every single week after that. So it just, we need to make sure that we're still like protecting our just like mental health and like our like
Yes.
work life balance. So I am, uh, yeah, and I am like learning how to say no to things, how to be okay with just setting things, setting boundaries to be
Yeah.
able to protect the team and myself, so that we're not, yeah, we're not working to ourselves into the ground. Even for the sake of like, yeah, people being upset or like more money, even, like
Yeah.
I feel like there's always that like lure of like, oh, but we could make more money. We could make more money, which is like, I just have to be okay with, that's okay. We can just leave that money on the table for the sake of us like enjoying our job still, and not like, yeah,
Yes.
not being upset and not being like constantly just feeling like we're dragging. So, yeah, I think that that has been a hard lesson, but like it is, I think it's good ultimately for all of us to make sure we set those boundaries.
I love that, and I love that you're setting the boundary for the team and
Mhm.
not just the boundary for you, but, like,
Yeah.
the health and welfare of my entire team is important, and I know y'all want this, but no.
Right.
And
Yeah,
no is a
no, that's
complete
so true.
sentence.
Yeah.
Like, we're not. These are the parameters you guys can work within so that we don't kill ourselves trying to give you a moon pie. Okay, so as we bring this to a close, I have one question for you. And this is like a piece of advice I would love for you to give other bakery owners who are thinking about longevity, not just revenue. What foundations must be in place early to build a business that supports the owner and the industry over time?
Ooh, opening a business, particularly a retail business, I do think that there is kind of what we were talking about earlier about setting boundaries.
Mhm,
Um, and also the book E-Myth. Both of them kind of like are aligning now at the end. But I think in order to make sure that you don't burn out, and I think because like I feel like it's just so easy to, right? It's just so easy as a business owner to do everything to quickly burn out, and then you're like, "Why am I doing this? I don't wanna
mhm,
do this anymore," right? And, like, and you just kinda forget why you started,
yeah,
and, um, I very much did not want that to happen, going into this, and so I baked in, like, what am I gonna do right away to make sure that I am repeatable, right? Like, that I'm replaceable rather, and that I can, like, I can step away, that I can work however many hours that I wanna work,
mhm,
and not be working, like 100-hour weeks or whatever like that. So I immediately like made sure I hired a really good manager, and I was like, I need to make sure I have somebody who knows what they're doing, who can help me run this business, and like that I don't have to be there day to day. And then I was very intentional about hiring my team as well, and like taking care of them, and making sure I had a team that would like stay with me. And so
mhm,
I am very, very thankful for my team that I have right now, and they really, like, hold down the fort so that if, yeah, for whatever reason, if my kid is sick or if we all have a stomach bug, which just happened,
yep,
I don't have to be there, and, like, it'll be okay, and the business will run without me. And so I think it's very important from the get-go to, like, doesn't have to be right away, like, immediately upon opening, but just, like, having those steps in place to, like, gradually work yourself out of the day to day, and, making sure that, yeah, like, going in, I will have this place running without me eventually, because, yeah, it's like, otherwise, you will either burn out or, like you were saying, if something happens to you, the business just
it stops.
doesn't exist.
Yep,
Like, that's not good. We can't have basically, and yeah, you can't have the business operating just based on, like, what you know how to do, or, like, what you physically being there. It just won't work that way, especially long term.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to just make sure you have goals in it already. Like, how are you going to work yourself out of the business? Who are you going to hire? Or like, what systems are you going to get written down so that like other
Mhm.
people know how to do this thing, how can they be trained up to like do the things that you know how to do? The transfer of knowledge, I think, is like very important to just immediately try to disseminate from the
Yeah.
beginning and like delegate the responsibilities. Yeah, yeah, and for me, like, my goal was to especially because I have 2 very young children right now, I was like, "I don't wanna be working constantly." Like,
Yeah.
I just can't, and I, like, wanna be around with my kids, and so I work part-time right now, at least physically in the shop, and I that was my goal from the very beginning. I was like, "I
Nice.
need to be able to work myself to part-time very quickly. And I also like, I ended up actually having my daughter last year while the bakery was still open. I took a 3-month maternity leave, and that was amazing, and I was like that was my goal as well. Like, I need to get to a point where I can leave for 3 months, and it'll be fine. And so I think, like, that was really important to me going in of how can I do this so that in 5 years, I actually still wanna do this, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I think it's really important from the beginning to, like, have those just like goals in mind of where will I want to be this many years down the road where I am not like hating my life and
Mhm.
not and wanting to close the business, right? Like because
Yeah.
they just that's otherwise it just doesn't help you or anybody in the community, the people you're trying to serve, if you're working yourself to a place of I don't want to do this anymore. So I think the big question would be, yeah, just like what what should the business look like where I will want to keep working in it?
Yeah.
And it looks different for everybody, right? But, like, I think for me to just be able to say, like, I can just work part-time, the business can run without me. I still hate all the business aspects of it, like we were talking about earlier that I have
Yes.
to do, but, at least, like, yeah, just being able to, like, figure out what is the best balance for you to be able to make sure the business is sustainable, yeah, not just yeah, without you, but also just for your mental health and physical health too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agreed. That's incredible advice. At that. Yeah, I mean, you just wrapped this up with a bow, and I love it. Thank you so, so much for taking time to chat with us today on The Perfect
Uh,
Life.
thank you so much.